Welcome back. Today we are diving deep into one of the most explosive geopolitical stories of our time. A story that connects China's stunning predictions, Iran's growing fear, Donald Trump's return to power, and the very real possibility that the Middle East is about to enter a devastating new phase of conflict. Stay with us because what we are about to reveal will leave you speechless. Let us start from the very beginning. For years, Chinese analysts, military strategists, and state media commentators have been watching the Middle East with extraordinary precision. While Western analysts were busy debating timelines and probabilities, China was quietly mapping out a roadmap, a step-by-step breakdown of how events in the Middle East would unfold. And here's the shocking part. They were right, almost every single time. Back when tensions between Israel and Hamas first escalated into full-scale war, Chinese analysts predicted that the conflict would not stay contained. They said clearly and loudly that this was not just about Gaza. They warned that Hezbollah in Lebanon would be drawn in. They warned that Yemen's Houthi rebels would start targeting international shipping routes. They warned that Iran, the so-called axis of resistance, would be pulled closer and closer to direct confrontation, and one by one, every single one of those predictions came true. When the Houthis started launching missiles and drones at commercial ships in the Red Sea, the world was shocked, but Chinese analysts simply nodded. They had seen it coming. When Hezbollah and Israel exchanged fire across the Lebanese border and eventually descended into a full military confrontation, again, China had predicted it. When Iran launched a direct missile and drone attack on Israeli territory for the first time in history, the world held its breath. But Chinese geopolitical thinkers were not surprised. They had told us this was coming. So why is China so accurate? Why do Chinese analysts seem to understand the Middle East better than anyone else? The answer lies in China's unique position in the world. China has deep economic and diplomatic ties with Iran. China buys Iranian oil. China has invested billions in Iranian infrastructure. At the same time, China maintains trade relationships with Gulf Arab states, with Israel, and with the United States. China is not a player in the Middle East conflict. It is an observer with eyes everywhere, and because China has no emotional or ideological stake in who wins or loses, its analysts can see the situation with cold, clear logic. Chinese strategists look at the Middle East not through the lens of religion, democracy, or ideology. They look at it through the lens of power, resources, and strategic interest. And that cold calculation has allowed them to predict with stunning accuracy what the next move will be on this deadly geopolitical chessboard. Now, let us talk about Iran. Iran has been the central player in the so-called axis of resistance, a network of militant groups and state actors that includes Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Houthis in Yemen, and various militia groups in Iraq and Syria. For years, Iran has used these proxy forces to project power across the region without directly engaging in conflict itself. It was a brilliant strategy. Stay behind the curtain, pull the strings, and let others do the fighting. But that strategy is now falling apart. Hamas has been devastated in Gaza. Its military infrastructure has been systematically dismantled. Hezbollah has suffered massive losses in Lebanon, including the assassination of its longtime leader Hassan Nasrallah, a blow so significant that it shook the entire region. The Houthis, despite their continuing missile campaigns, are under immense military pressure from American and British strikes. And in Syria, the government of Bashar al-Assad, Iran's closest Arab ally, has collapsed, dramatically shrinking Iran's land corridor to Lebanon and the Mediterranean. Iran is watching its carefully built network of influence crumble piece by piece. And now, there is an even bigger threat on the horizon, the return of Donald Trump to the White House. Trump's first term in office was marked by an aggressive maximum pressure campaign against Iran. He withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal, the JCPOA, and reimposed the most severe economic sanctions in history on Tehran. He ordered the assassination of Iran's most powerful military commander, General Qasem Soleimani, in a drone strike at Baghdad airport. That single act sent shockwaves through the Iranian leadership like nothing before it. The message was clear. Trump plays by different rules. Trump is willing to do what others will not, and now Trump is back. In the months leading up to the 2024 election, Trump made no secret of his views on Iran. He blamed the Biden administration for being soft on Tehran, for allowing Iran's oil revenues to recover, for failing to stop Iran's nuclear program. Trump promised that under his leadership, Iran would face maximum pressure once again, only this time even more intense. His advisors, his cabinet picks, his public statements, all of them pointed in one direction: a new, more aggressive American posture toward Iran. Chinese analysts were among the first to clearly articulate what this meant. They laid it out in phases. Phase 1 was the destruction of Iran's proxy network, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Syrian corridor. That phase is largely complete or well underway. Phase 2 was the economic and diplomatic isolation of Iran, cutting off its oil revenues, tightening sanctions, reducing its international support. That phase is accelerating, and Phase 3, the phase that the entire world is now watching with deep anxiety, is the possibility of a direct military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and military infrastructure. Is Phase 3 really coming? Let us look at the evidence. Israel has already demonstrated that it is willing and able to strike deep inside Iranian territory. In its retaliatory strike in late 2024, Israel successfully hit Iranian air defense systems, the very systems designed to protect Iran's most sensitive military and nuclear sites. The message from Israel was unmistakable. We can reach you, and we can hurt you, and your defenses cannot stop us. Iran's nuclear program is now the central concern. Western intelligence agencies believe Iran has significantly advanced its uranium enrichment, moving dangerously close to weapons-grade levels. The window to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon is closing rapidly. Both Israel and the United States under Trump view a nuclear-armed Iran as an existential threat, not just to Israel but to the entire regional balance of power. Trump has surrounded himself with advisors who are deeply hawkish on Iran. His Secretary of State, his National Security Advisor, his key foreign policy team. These are people who have publicly argued for regime change in Tehran, for military options on the table, for treating Iran's nuclear program as a red line that cannot be crossed. The diplomatic path is narrowing. The military option is being discussed openly in Washington and Tel Aviv. Chinese analysts have noted something else that is deeply significant. In every previous standoff with Iran, the United States and Israel held back because they feared Iranian retaliation. Iran's proxies were the ultimate insurance policy. If you strike us, we will unleash Hezbollah, we will flood Iraq with chaos, we will set the entire region on fire. But that insurance policy has now been dramatically weakened. Hezbollah is degraded. Hamas is on the ropes. The Houthi threat, while real, is manageable. The window of vulnerability for Iran, the window where a strike is possible without triggering a catastrophic regional response, may be opening right now. Iran's leadership knows this. Inside Tehran, there is genuine fear. Senior Iranian officials have been speaking in unusually urgent terms about the threats facing the country. There have been reports of internal debates within the Iranian government about whether to accelerate the nuclear program as a deterrent or whether to seek some kind of diplomatic off-ramp before it is too late. Neither option is easy, neither option is safe. If Iran rushes to build a nuclear weapon, it risks triggering the very military strike it is trying to prevent. If Iran seeks diplomacy, it risks appearing weak. And in the brutal world of Middle Eastern politics, appearing weak can be fatal. And so Iran finds itself in a trap that Chinese analysts would argue was carefully and deliberately constructed over the past several years. Now let us zoom out and ask the bigger question: what does this mean for the world? A military strike on Iran would not be like striking Hamas or Hezbollah. Iran is a large, powerful nation with a sophisticated military, ballistic missiles that can reach targets across the entire Middle East, and a population of nearly 90 million people who have been told for decades that America and Israel are their mortal enemies. A strike on Iran would almost certainly trigger a massive retaliation, not just from Iran itself, but from whatever remains of its proxy network, and potentially from other actors who see an opportunity in the chaos. Oil prices would skyrocket. The Strait of Hormuz, through which roughly 20% of the world's oil supply passes, could be disrupted or shut down entirely. Global financial markets would shudder. Countries across Asia, Europe, and the developing world that depend on Middle Eastern oil would face economic shockwaves. China, for all its predictive accuracy, is deeply worried about this scenario. China is Iran's largest trading partner. China gets a significant portion of its energy from the Gulf region. A major Middle Eastern war would hurt China economically, even as China watches from the sidelines. This is why Chinese officials have been unusually vocal in recent months, calling for diplomatic solutions, warning against military escalation, urging all parties to exercise restraint. But China's calls for restraint may not be enough to stop what is coming. The United States under Trump is not inclined to listen to Chinese advice on foreign policy. Israel, fighting for what it sees as its very survival, is not going to let Chinese Chinese diplomatic preferences slow it down, and Iran, cornered, weakened, and facing an existential threat, may make decisions driven by desperation rather than calm calculation. This is the dangerous moment we are living in right now. Chinese analysts predicted the first phase, they predicted the second phase, and now, with eerie precision, they are describing the conditions for the third phase and warning that those conditions are rapidly falling into place. Whether you believe a military strike on Iran is justified, inevitable, or a catastrophic mistake, one thing is undeniable. The world is moving in that direction faster than most people realize. The chess pieces are being moved, the strategies are being finalized, the clock is ticking. History teaches us that in moments like these, when great powers are repositioning, when regional actors are vulnerable, when political windows are opening, the probability of major conflict rises dramatically. We have seen it before. We are seeing it again. China saw it coming. Iran is now facing it, and the rest of the world needs to wake up and pay attention, because what happens in the Middle East in the coming months will shape the future of our entire world for decades to come. That is the story, that is the warning, and that is why today, more than ever, we cannot afford to look away. Thank you for watching. If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The world needs more people who understand what is really happening, not just what they are being told. Stay informed, stay alert, and we will see you in the next one.